So most of you will never see $1 million in business funding. Not because you're broke, not because you're lazy, but because you're playing the wrong game. Banks do not reward hustle, they reward structure. And if you don't understand what I'm about to show you, you will stay stuck at $25,000 limits forever. So I'm Brittany Calloway, and I work with business owners on turning their credit into capital and capital into freedom. And today I'm breaking down a simpler, safer, and more actionable blueprint you can actually follow to learn the 7-figure funding sequence. So let me tell you the truth nobody says out loud. There are people walking around with a 720 score who still cannot get approved for meaningful limits. And there are people who used to have a 400 credit score who now have access to millions. Why? Because the score is not the full story. Banks are underwriting the profile. My story was exactly that. I literally was at a 550 score in 2016 to now over 800. And I built roughly $2.3 million in total funding across personal and business lines, right? Multiple entities. And my goal is to close out 2026 with hopefully about 5 million. Today, we're breaking down the mechanics to get there. But what if you were thinking, Brittany, this feels risky, or I don't have just $10,000 sitting in savings to pay for credit limits that high, or I don't want a bunch of inquiries, or I don't want to do anything that sounds like loopholes. Great, because I'm going to show you the safe version to do these things. We're not falsifying anything. We're not inflating income. We are not applying everywhere like a maniac, trying to see what fits. We are building a funding portfolio the same way you actually build wealth. Okay, so pro tips. Number 1, you have to understand the bank mindset. They lend based on comparables, not confidence. A representative told me this. Banks judge what is on your profile. True comparables is what gets you large lines. So what does that mean in translation? If the largest loan you have ever managed is a $500 secure card, a bank is not going to wake up and hand you $50,000 unsecured. They want proof you can manage similar debt responsibly. So comparables are simply quality accounts that show the underwriter you can handle higher limits. So the core funding strategy starts here. Build quality comparables first. That's the first step, game changer. Step 2, you have to build the right mix of accounts. We need to have the right mix of installment plus revolving accounts in order to get larger limits for us. In funding, a fixed payment for installment accounts means fixed for a term. Fixed auto loan, mortgage, student loan, personal loan. Revolving means flexible usage. Credit cards, lines of credit. Why does the mix matter so much? Different lenders use different scoring models and different risk lenses depending on the product. The mortgage lens is not the same as the credit card lens. So your goal is to build a profile that performs in multiple underwriting environments. This is how you stop being approved for only one type of product. Another tip is following the 8 to 12 month rule. Do never rush to close an installment loan. Many underwriters say the rule of thumb is to hold installment loans or accounts for 8 to 12 months before paying them fully off. Why? Because you want a visible track record of paid as agreed payments over time. If you take a loan and then you pay it off immediately, you may get the account, but then you lose the ongoing benefit of that payment history that you were trying to accumulate and build. So the Wealthy Lab way and our pro tip way is if you are strategically using an installment loan to now really strengthen your profile, plan on holding on to it long enough to create a meaningful trail. Another tip. I don't really love the store cards, so I like to skip those. I'd rather you use bank issued product instead. So I'm not a fan of getting store credit cards like K Jewelers or, Target cards work at Target. Victoria's Secret cards work at Victoria's Secret. So even if a bank underwrites it, it still reads as a consumer retail product. If the goal is 7 figures in funding, you want bank issued products that can be used anywhere and are treated like real bank credit. So build bank level credibility, not retail level credibility. Tip number 5. Secured products can be powerful because they signal liquidity and it builds internal ratings. This is a key thing. Secured products can be better than store cards because it shows you have capital to put up. So for example, secured cards, shared secured loans, certificate pledge loans, Navy Federal pledge loans, those types of products. Why does that matter? Because a secured product lets you build payment history and your internal bank rating with the institution. It gives like a relationship footprint that can later convert into unsecured approvals. This is not about the secured product itself. It's more about what it unlocks. So with a shared secured loan play, for example, if we took $10,000 of liquidity, how does that actually create larger comparables? This is the most technical part, so I really want you to pay attention. If you had $10,000 in cash and savings, you can take a shared secured loan against your own savings. The bank freezes that money as collateral. They issue you a loan for the same amount. Now, the goal is not to borrow your money forever. The goal is to create a primary installment comparable on your credit report. Pay down 95% of it quickly, but do not pay the whole thing off completely. Why? Because when you pay most of it down, you can extend the next payment due date far into the future based on the amortization schedule and based on what type of bank and account it is. And because that account stays open, you're getting ongoing payment history reporting instead of closing the account immediately. And that is a much safer way to build out your profile consistently. You must confirm the bank's policy, though, on that collateral release. Some institutions release the collateral as you pay it down. Others hold it until the loan is fully paid off. You do not want to lock your cash for no reason. So before you do this with any bank, ask, if I pay 90% down, do you release the remaining collateral back to me proportionally, or do you hold it until payoff? That one question will determine whether this is a smart liquidity play or a cash hostage situation. So just be careful with that. Another thing, when you're stacking comparables without triggering duplicate patterns, vary amounts and timing. You don't want to run the exact same secured loan amount repeatedly with the same issuer because other lenders may read it as duplicate behavior. So for example, you would do this with $10,000 for a secured product, then $7,500, then $5,000. This creates multiple installment comparables using the same core liquidity, depending on the institution. So sometimes people think, oh, if I just do 500, 500, 500, right? That also does the same thing, but it doesn't always help when you do it that way. The goal is to increase the number of quality trade lines without looking manufactured. So you want to vary your size, keep it realistic, prioritize just clean reporting over just, flashy numbers. Also, if you want help with this, you can grab my Operate Like a Pro Business Credit Card checklist at thefundinglounge.com. We're really making sure we're teaching you all the steps to get your larger limits. You can grab it from the link in the description below. All right, another tip is the 590 method. You really want to, if you were really accelerating this, our goal would be like 5 banks every 90 days with discipline to go very fast. So if you already have a semi-seasoned profile built out, right, you're already in the 700s, every 90 days, build 5 new bank relationships if you want to go fast with building. You could do it per bureau to make it more responsible. Because if you do too much too fast, you can damage your profile with too many inquiries and too many new accounts. So a safe way to do this, though, is 2 institutions every 90 days. If you were kind of at another level 3, for example, 3 institutions every 90 days. But the max is up to 5 institutions every 90 days. And again, only if your file is strong and you can manage the reporting cleanly. It's not a race. It's more about us understanding how to do the sequencing. Now, you want to start with your strongest bureau because approvals are momentum based. Meaning if your Equifax is your best highest number, target lenders that pull Equifax first. If TransUnion is your best, do that. This is smart because early wins increase your available credit and it's going to strengthen your profile and sometimes your internal approvals. So we want to make sure that we're capitalizing on the momentum because momentum does matter. Another tip is to date the bank for 90 days minimum before asking for big money. This is just a concept I love. When you date the bank, you're building a relationship first. So what's the deposit activity, account activity, consistent usage, clean behavior? Now you can ask. If you walk into the bank with no relationship and request high limits, you're relying purely on the cold underwriting model, which we can maneuver and strategize. But obviously relationships often unlock internal scoring that is friendlier than just the public model. So the move is to open the account, run consistent deposits, use products lightly and responsibly, and then ask for at the right time for the increase. That's why it's so important to know the sequence order. Before you ever apply for anything, you have to check for pre-qualifications. Why? because pre-qualifications are soft pulls, and a soft pull does not hurt your credit. Hard pulls rack up, soft pulls protect. Remember that. You always start where there is the least risk. Many major banks offer pre-qualification portals. American Express, Capital One, Discover, start there. Never just randomly apply to rack up inquiries. Step 2, new account sensitive banks. Now, this is where most people mess up. You cannot just go in random order. Some banks are extremely sensitive to new accounts. For example, Chase is known for their infamous 524 rule. Unless you have a very seasoned profile and you're a CPC, Chase private client, it's easier to bypass this rule. But if you have opened 5 or more credit cards in the past 24 months, Chase will automatically sometimes deny you. And if you're over 5 accounts in 24 months, you're just done. That is Chase's internal risk filter. Bank of America has something similar. They have it's called the 312 rule. If you open more than 3 new accounts in the last 12 months, it's very hard to get funding. It's almost like you're not an existing, and especially if you're not an existing Bank of America customer, you're just going to be denied. They have a 712 rule. If you're an existing customer and if you have opened up more than 7 new accounts in the past 12 months, they will not issue you a new card as well. So what does that mean? You must go to new account sensitive banks first, because those are the ones that are going to allow you to stack without really damaging your credit profile. Because once you stack too many accounts, you're going to lose access to them. This is why sequencing matters. Banks also have timing caps. Chase has what's known as the 230 rule. You can't get more than 2 credit cards in a 30-day period. Bank of America has something similar in structure with certain time windows. So even if you qualify, if you violate the timing rule, you can still get denied. So understanding these rules protects your profile. Step 3, you also need to understand how to multi-dip off of one inquiry. Now we get into real leverage. Multi-dip banks are diamonds in the rough, right? Because what is a multi-dip? They basically pull your credit one time, but you can get multiple products from that single inquiry. For example, you walk into a bank, they pull your credit once. From that one pull, you can get a personal credit card, a personal loan, an auto loan, a line of credit, one pull, multiple approvals. Banks like that are great. Bank of America does that, Chase does that, and certain regional institutions too as well. They offer double dips and multi-dip opportunities. That's how you maximize one inquiry. Most people just waste inquiries, right? Just by applying for multiple things and then you're done. We multiply them strategically. Also, multi-entity. Now that is where it gets powerful. If you have more than one LLC, and especially at that bank, you can unlock multi-entity leverage. For example, I have 3 separate LLCs at Chase. Instead of applying once, I can apply under each entity. Certain banks will pull my personal credit once, but issue credit under each business. So you could literally get 3 business credit cards, 3 lines of credit, 3 approvals, all off one personal bank pool. It's amazing. Truist, Citizens, PNC, and other relationship-based lenders also allow this depending on structure and revenue. So now instead of stacking one card, you are stacking across entities. This is how funding scales quickly. Step 5 is going to be documentation levels. Now we just have to talk about documentation. There are different tiers of lending. Number 1 is just stated income products. That's low docs, meaning you're just stating your projected revenue. The bank does not initially require heavy documentation. However, there are people online telling you to inflate your income. Never falsify information. If a bank performs a financial review and you cannot prove what you put on the application, they can shut down all your accounts, which destroys your credit score overnight. If you're using stated income products, keep it reasonable, within 20 to 25% of provable revenue. Be strategic, not reckless with this. Second is light documentation. Light documents is when the banks are going to require 3 to 9 months of business bank statements. They review deposits, cash flow, stability. This is common for business lines of credit and business term loans. Full documentation is the deeper one, where they want to see 1 year of tax returns, or even sometimes 2, 4566T IRS transcript pulls. The bank can go directly to the IRS and verify your income. This is common for larger loans, larger lines of credit, and FBA products. The higher the loan, the deeper the documentation. So this is why I wanted to give you guys the clean sequence. Pre-qualifications, soft pull banks, new account sensitive banks, multi-dip opportunities, and then multi-entity stacking. Stated income, so they're low doc products, light doc, and then full doc. You always want to move from low friction to high documentation, from least risk to most leverage. This is not random, this is very strategic. The goal is not just approvals, the goal is to make banks compete to lend you money. When your profile is structured correctly, and when your sequence is clean, and when your comparables are strong, you no longer are begging for funding. You are selecting offers, and that is a way more powerful position to be in. Most people burn their profile because they chase excitement instead of the sequence. If you follow this order, you protect your credit. You maximize inquiries, you scale intelligently, and that's why you get higher limits. So the next video, I'm going to show you how the credit card game has changed forever, and you don't even know it yet. So go ahead and check it out, because in economic downtimes, banks are changing their restrictions. So make sure you pay attention on this in 2026. See you there.